Your Steve Jones Show podcast will start shortly. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Brewers Outlet, your beverage supermarket on Reagan Street in Sunbury.
Reuben Frank, the great man himself. Rube, how are you? Great to have you back.
Always good to be with you. What's going on?
Hey, you know what? We're getting all revved up because high school football season's here. I got my Penn State game next Thursday night at Purdue. And the Eagles are gearing up. They got one more preseason game. So what do you think, in your opinion, what really do you like that you feel like's been accomplished during this camp and the preseason games, Rube?
Well, I don't know about the preseason games, but it's been, it's been a pretty good camp, and we've seen. Look, the main thing people want to know is how does Jalen Hurts look, and he's had a good camp. He's had an encouraging camp. He's doing a lot of things. I think all the things he had to work on, he's gotten better at. Seeing the whole field, delivering the ball quicker and more accurately, using all his receivers, and just kind of going through his progression quicker and not, you don't see that static, just standing there looking and then taking off running. He's a young quarterback in a new offense, and now he's got a second year in the same offense for the first time since high school, and it shows. He's come a long way, and we'll see how it translates into his play once the season starts, but I would think you'll see a more efficient, more accurate, more productive quarterback.
There's no doubt that they did a great job as a management team and a coaching staff of surrounding him with more quality options out there. Now, he hasn't always had them every day. Guys get banged up here and there. But what have you felt about the additions and what they can mean to the ability of, let's pay tribute to Len Dawson here and matriculate the ball down the field?
Yeah, well, there's two guys. There's A.J. Brown, who's an elite receiver and has had a heck of a camp. He's been so impressive, physical, tough, knows all the tricks, really aggressive, attacks the ball. Catches everything, and he's got a great rapport with Jalen. And then, Pascal, they got from the Colts, who probably be the fourth receiver. He's had a great camp, too. I'm not sure how big a role he'll have, but, you get a couple of O-linemen back who were hurt last year and that kind of thing. So, most of this team's changes were on defense. So A.J. Brown's certainly a big one, and I think that's going to just have a huge impact on the offense, because now Devontae Smith isn't going to be doubled all the time like he was last year. And they basically had, until Quez Watkins emerged, they really just had one receiver who was a viable option and a great tight end. And that makes it really tough for a quarterback, because defenses know they don't have to cover the second receiver. Jalen Reagor had a terrible year. They don't have to cover the second tight end, Jack Stahl, once Zach Ertz was traded. So a lot more options now, a lot more threats offensively, and it should be a much more balanced offense.
Now, obviously, this will be a better question once the season gets going, but a guy like Brown, you see him play for Tennessee, you have an appreciation for him. Now that you've seen him in person a little bit and watched how he operates where it's your own eyes looking at him, how much more impressed are you by him?
Yeah, I guess I didn't watch enough Titans games over the last few years, but he's just so physical, and this team hasn't had a lot of good receivers, and the ones they've had have been like speedy, like Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson type guys, very quick, slim, kind of run a 4.3, but not a big, tough, physical guy. A.J. Brown is different, and he's different than you try to come up with a comparison. Irving Fryer is the best I could do. He reminds me of Fryer in his ability to use his strength and his power and his toughness as a weapon. He attacks cornerbacks. He doesn't let them attack him, and he's just so strong and is able to just muscle his way to the football. Really different kind of receiver than we've seen around here in a long time.
You talked about most of the personnel changes being on defense. So let's get to that side of the ball here. With the personnel changes they've made, has that been, okay, I'm going to fit you into what I do, or are the coaches adapted because they feel they have better personnel and they can play a different way?
Yeah, Jonathan Gannon is like the last guy on earth who's going to try to shoehorn players into his scheme. And he jokes about how I don't have a scheme. My scheme depends on who I have and who we're facing and the down and distance.
Beautiful.
They're going to play 3-4. They're going to play 4-3. They're going to play everything under the sun to get the most out of the weapons that he has. And you have Jordan Davis now. You have Nakobe Dean. You have Hassan Reddick. You have James Bradbury. I mean, they've really added some talent. Kazir White, who's had a really nice camp as a linebacker. They've added a lot of pieces, and they're going to be really multiple. He likes versatile guys who are intelligent, so they can kind of go back and forth from one front to another without blinking, and he's got that. So it's going to come down to can they come together? It's a lot of new pieces in a defense. Couple new linebackers, a new safety, a new corner, a couple new pieces up front. A new scheme, because they weren't really a 3-4 team, and they're going to be both. They're going to play some odd and some even front. They could change within the series what they're doing. So it's going to be fun to watch. They're going to be really varied and multiple, and just hope that these guys are in the right place, because they certainly have a lot more talent than they had last year.
So now I'm going to ask you the same question I asked about Brown, except on the defensive side. Now that you've seen a couple of these new guys in person, who gives you a greater appreciation now than maybe you had before?
I would say James Bradbury is a guy who I knew he was a good cornerback with the Giants, but I had no idea just how solid he is. And when you have him and Darius Slay, I mean, you got two guys who've been to a Pro Bowl in the last year or two, and Bradbury is fully capable of being a CB1. He'll be CB2, but he's fun to watch. He's just it's funny. They're like opposite personalities. Slay is funny and doesn't shut up, and he's the kind of guy that's going to be an hour after practice ends, he's going to be looking for reporters to talk to, just because he's just, that's the way he is. James Bradbury's just quiet, doesn't say a word to anyone, goes out and does his job kind of guy. But he's really surprised me with how steady he is, how solid he is, how smart he is. And he's a physical player, too. And it's been really good work between these corners and the receivers, because they didn't have that last year. They haven't had that in a while. I don't know the last time they had good receivers and good corners. So it's been fun watching the one-on-ones, and it's a high level, and they're giving Jalen really good looks defensively, and nothing comes easy to the offense, and that's what you want. That's how you get better.
I know the last time we talked, you talked about Jordan Davis. And sometimes in the camp, a guy gets off to a great start, he'll plateau. Sometimes they just keep going. So what have you seen from Davis? Has he kept going?
Yeah, he's been really fun to watch. You just marvel at his athleticism at that size, and he lost 20 pounds, and he's really taken his conditioning thing seriously, and he knows he's not going to play if he's not in shape, and he knows what the tag was at Georgia, that he wasn't going to help you in the fourth quarter, that he was maybe good for 20 snaps, 25 snaps, and he's really worked hard to get past that. So I think he's probably plateaued a little bit. I think everybody does at the end of the last week of training camp. They've been going, going every day for a month. So the next week they'll kind of ramp it down a little bit. But I expect him to have a big role in this team. And you watch him, especially in the one-on-ones against the Browns last week. He's going up against guys who've never seen him, and it's kind of funny to just, how do you prepare for a guy who's 6'5", 340, and has that kind of power and speed? Because there was this one kid, Brown's guard, Frodome, number 72. I can't get his name. I don't know his name, but he bull rushed in the first rep. And just, he looked like the kid was on skates. He just pushed him, 10 yards down the field. And then the next rep he had against him, he faked a bull rush and did a spin move on him. And the kid didn't know it hit him. So it's been fun watching him. I don't think he'll have a huge role just because they have Hargrave and Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams. But I expect him to be a factor and get significant snaps this year.
Yeah, and you and I know that's one of the reasons you call it the dog days of August, because you get into this time, it's been rep after rep, and it's hot. And it's and the guys, if you can fight through it, that's great. That's great. The practices against the opposing team, like with the Browns last week. I think a lot of coaches tell you that's where the real value is for them. Other than that, when they're not doing that, under the new rules, give us a perspective about the hitting now in practice versus the hitting 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the big change was in 2002 when, Corey Stringer died in 2001 out of Vikings practice in Mankato State. Yeah. And that's when the league outlawed two-a-days. And, and so your afternoon practice is now either a walkthrough or special teams practice at a walkthrough pace. So, but, that first practice, and they have days off. They have, Sirianni gives them every third day is a walkthrough. Their research showed that most soft tissue injuries happen the third day in a row of practice. So they got rid of it, and now they have a walkthrough that third day. When they do work, it is physical. And, people have this image of this country club atmosphere because the practices are a little shorter, but they're intense. They go an hour and a half to 2 hours, and they don't tackle to the ground, but they hit. They're physical, and they do everything they can to get ready for the season while staying healthy. And it's a balance. You got to balance those two things, and it's not easy. And they're always trying to find new ways to do it, but there's just a lot less of it than there was before. But there's also a lot fewer injuries than there were back in the old days.
Right.
When rosters were 120 guys and the ambulance was sitting there waiting on the sideline for the next guy to take to the hospital. So I think they found a pretty good balance between those two, and they're good high-tempo practices. There's not a lot of standing around, not a lot of wasted time, and then get them inside and get them off their feet and get them hydrated and start watching film.
Second year for Nick Sirianni as a head coach. Do you already see some subtle changes in approach from him because it is the second time and he has that experience under his belt?
Honestly, I really don't. He kind of came in with an idea of how he wanted to operate, and he's just stuck to it. He really won the players over early, quickly, by really emphasizing. He's an ultimate players coach because he wants to get to know every guy, and he wants every player on offense to get to know every player on defense. He just wants that bond. His thing is if you are friends with the guy, with your teammates, you're going to go a little bit harder for them. And he wants to know every player's, their how they grew up. Wants to know about their family. And that's just the way he is. And players really respond to it, and they appreciate it, and it's genuine, and it has to be, or it doesn't work. I just see the same guy. I see the same guy with a better team, honestly, and I think that's good. I don't think you want to keep changing things. You are who you are. If you're confident in that, then just go with it.
Now, look, it's obviously the proof will be in the pudding starting in week 1. Have you walked out of there feeling more optimistic about what the Eagles have? Or is your expectation still pretty much the same? They're confirming some of the things you thought.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I thought they were about an 11-win team before training camp started, and I'm still right about there. Nothing happened to make me think they won't be. And I think 12 is possible. I think 12 wins is possible. And no, I think they kind of are what I thought they would be when they made all those moves in the spring and brought in all that talent, young talent, guys who were in their prime or just getting to their prime. So I think everything I've seen has kind of reinforced what I believe. They're a pretty good team on the upswing, and the big thing for them is they got to get past the Cowboys because they just haven't been able to do that, and Cowboys have been a stumbling block for them for a better part of a decade. They haven't swept the Cowboys since 2011, and they've lost I think 7 of the last 10 at home. And I know the Cowboys have had a lot of big losses, and they just lost their all-pro tackle, but they just have been one of those roadblocks for the Eagles, and if they can get past that, they have a chance to do some serious damage.
Always level-headed perspective. Appreciate you so much, Rube. Thanks so much for your time.
You got it. Anytime.